We are convened as of 5:31 p.m. and I would respectfully ask everyone to remain muted unless you are recognized to speak. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please note that the official meetings of the RTD Board of Directors are being held remotely in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare. The official meetings of the Board of Directors will be held via Zoom and will be audio and video recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. Please visit rtd-denver.com, and a live stream of the meeting will also be available via RTD YouTube's page. Colleagues, being elected as members of this body imposes an ethical obligation for each of us to enhance and maintain the public confidence in this agency. As a board of directors, it is our collective duty to our constituents, stakeholders, and staff to conduct our business in an atmosphere of mutual respect, cooperation, civility, trust, and collegiality. These are the values that we can all agree upon. As such, I encourage all of us to review the operating guidelines adopted by this board and to act in accordance with those principles, which are available on the Board of Directors page on the RTD website. Thank you. We're going to start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. Secretary Busick, would you please lead us in that?
Happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I would like to ask Director Tisdale, would you please read out the land acknowledgement, sir?
The RTD Board of Directors acknowledges that the land on which our buses and trains operate is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and other contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to these lands. We honor our indigenous elders who have traveled, inhabited, and stewarded these mountains, hills, and plains throughout the generations. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of inequity of the native and all historically oppressed peoples, and recognize their current and future contributions to the district as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McManus, would you please call the roll? And please note that Director Rosenthal will be a few minutes late.
Thank you. Director Bouquet.
Present.
Director Broom.
Present.
Director Busick.
Here.
Director Catlin.
Here.
Director Cook.
Here.
Director Davidson.
Here.
Director Deschel.
Here.
Director Geisinger.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Present.
Noted that Director Rosenthal will be a few minutes late. Director Sloan.
Here.
Director Tisdale.
Present.
Director Whitmore.
Present.
Director Williams.
Good evening. I am here.
And Chair Rivera Malpietti.
Present.
14 present and counted for. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At RTD, safety is paramount, and I would like to begin this meeting with a short safety briefing. The Transit Security Administration, also known as the TSA, has extended the federal mask requirement for public transportation until January 18th, 2022. The federal mask requirement states that individuals must wear a face covering while waiting for and while riding public transportation, to include airports, aircraft, train stations, and trains, bus stops, and buses. This evening, one of the many truly rewarding duties of serving on this board is the recognition of RTD retirees. Being able to acknowledge the incredible individuals who work here for a significant portion of their professional careers is both an honor and a privilege. It's becoming increasingly rare for agencies and companies to be fortunate enough to have such long-standing tenured employees. And RTD is so truly blessed to have such amazing and dedicated people as part of our family. This evening, I am honored to read the names of the employees who have retired since the beginning of the year. Due to COVID, we've been unable to give these amazing individuals the send-off they so richly deserve at our Blake Street boardroom. But tonight, we would like to recognize and acknowledge their time and dedication to this agency. Daniel Ashford, mechanic, 31 years. Pamela Atkinson, bus operator, 16 years. Teresa Bailey, bus operator, 23 years. James A.S. Boutel, assistant manager of transportation, 31 years. Brian Booch, internal distribution clerk, 20 years. Robert Daniels, general repair mechanic, 21 years. John C. Dawson, purchasing agent, 36 years. Stuart A. Deerfield, MOW supervisor, 17 years. Lori Gates, risk management specialist 2, 24 years. David C. Geringer, bus operator, 20 years. Gory Grandin, manager design, 32 years. Stuart M. Goldich, bus operator, 21 years. Matthew Harrison, manager of environmental, 20 years. Kenneth W. Herrera, light rail operator, 20 years. Min Kun Wang, bus operator, 21 years. Keith A. Hussinger, bus operator, 29 years. Brian D. Iacano, senior manager materials management, 36 years. David Hockes, parts clerk, 36 years. Galen V. Johnson, bus operator, 21 years. Jim Kelly, team lead engineer for 15 years. Robert Lane, bus operator, 21 years. David Miles, bus operator, 29 years. David L. Milligan, bus operator, 26 years. Albert Lane Morgan, mechanic, 20 years. Deborah Nixon, bus operator, 20 years. Marvin Roberts, light rail electromechanic, 29 years. Coy L. Robinson Jr., bus operator, 30 years. Bertram Rogers, bus operator, 20 years. Michelle R. Romero, bus operator, 23 years. Fernando Ruiz Carrillo, bus operator, 22 years. Eva Sandoval, bus operator, 37 years. Praya Shishra, senior manager, program management, fast track, 25 years. Ken Seifert, light rail operator, 23 years. James Allen Stadler, associate general counsel, 25 years. Jack Tommins, storeroom supervisor, 35 years. James D. Trujillo, bus operator, 20 years. Maxine Thomashoff, light rail operator, 17 years. Rod G. Tuggle, FM PM, 18 years. David Valentine, bus operator, 17 years. Gerald L. Wallen, bus operator, 20 years, and Scott Wells, street supervisor, 32 years. Can we give them a hand? This is just amazing. Thank you. Thank you for your service to this agency. Thank you for your service to this community. Thank you for being part of our family. Ms. McManus.
I'd like to note that Director Rosenthal has joined the meeting,
Thank
and
you.
that for those folks who did not catch your statement, all of those retirees were cumulative through 2021, January through current.
Thank you so much. Okay. This is our public participation period, which is open to anyone who would like to address the board. As is our custom, we allow any of our elected officials to present to speak first. And if you'd wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. Our team will unmute you, and when it is your turn to speak, if you are dialed in, press *6 to toggle your mute settings. Please bear in mind that by participating in this process, you are being recorded. So if you do not wish to be recorded, then your comments will have to be submitted in writing and you will not have the opportunity to speak this evening. If any speaker has documentation or reference materials for the board, please email those materials to the board office at the following email address: board.office@rtd-denver.com. During this time, the board will not offer comments or responses. Directors or staff may contact speakers following their comments if they raise matters that lend themselves to follow up. Speakers should begin their remarks by stating their names. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. And speakers, please refrain from profane or obscene speech and direct your comments to the board as a whole and refrain from personal attacks. Ms. McManus, do we have anyone in the queue?
I am not seeing any hands. I'm just looking a second time. I see 2 hands at this point. One would be Lee Kemp.
Okay, Mr. Kemp, you have 3 minutes.
You're on mute. Mr. Kemp, you're on mute.
Okay, I finally figured out. I apologize. My name is Lee Kemp. I reside at 12745 Winona Circle in Broomfield. And I would just like to say congratulations to all those retirees, especially Brian Iacano, who I have personally known for several years. And my one last thing I'd like to say is at the APTA conference last year, I know that Doug Tinsdale, Director Tinsdale, was made chair of the board committee for APTA. And I want to congratulate him publicly on his appointment and look forward to seeing him chair that committee and push board members across our country forward where they need to be recognized. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McManus?
I am seeing Riley Wharton.
Mr. Wharton?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
I began I began my job as an RTD bus operator this January, but I'm also I also live in an area where transit could be a lot better, as is true in a lot of in a lot of the RTD transit area. I don't blame RTD for that, by the way. I mostly blame the pandemic. I blame a lot of external factors, including the political situation. I guess my question was, what are your current plans to perhaps make it easier to become an RTD bus operator? Because while I think I'll be good to go, I don't know if other people are aware of it, or if they're able to do it, or rather able to easily apply. I guess, I don't know. And I don't know if this is the right place to ask this. So please, if there's a better place to ask this, please let me know.
Well, thank you, sir. Okay. Ms. McManus, is there anyone else in the queue?
I just looked down the list and no, I don't see another hand.
Thank you.
Madam
with
Chair,
the-
Director Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, do we want to point out to the gentleman who just spoke that he should submit that question to the board office, that we are not designed at this meeting to reply to his question?
We did at the beginning, but yes, thank you for reiterating that so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Chair, we have another speaker, if you might. Paolo Sarazano.
Paolo, go ahead.
Okay, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, this is Paulo Solorzano. It's great to hear all the longtime, the staff there, but I'm calling in about the light rail signals. In particular, it's something I've been bringing up for since 2018. The light rail banners at basically system wide are still showing incorrect information at a lot of stops. One example in particular that is a good reflection of what is going on system wide, and again, this has been going on since 2018, is the Colfax and Auraria station. That light rail signage throughout COVID and this past few months, which I really documented, and I've sent an email to customer service managers and some other people, but this one in particular, Colfax and Auraria station, does not. It's been switching from having no information, basically the malfunctioning banner. It then switched to having correct information for a few days, or it's hard to tell sometimes, but then right now it is showing incorrect information. It's showing 8 a.m. through 8:30 a.m. all day long, and it has been like that for the last few weeks. Again, I have talked to several people on this call about this. It's just been ongoing for a long time, and with the ongoing 20 or more lanes are canceled in a day, it makes the commute that much more impactful in a lot of ways. So again, I know there's a lot of people missing parole violation, you're on probation, criminal justice system, or medical appointments, stuff like it's happened to me. But I just lastly, like this was, I've been putting in these complaints for a long time, and I do have the documentation. I've been trying to get that through to somebody who can give me some answers as far as why this is ongoing. But on this date, I sent the email, it's all dated, but there were 100 people outside the Colfax and Auraria stations just within that half an hour. And so people do call Ubers and Lyfts when they that might not be coming. The MLB also is also an example of that. The communication, people.
Thank you, Pablo. Your
social
3
media,
minutes are up, sir. Thank you so much for contacting RTD.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate a callback or something from somebody.
Thank you. Ms. McManus, anyone else in the queue?
I see no other hands.
Okay, with no other participants in the queue, we will close the public participation at this time. The committee minutes were included in the board packet. Are there any corrections from directors? Okay, hearing none, those committee reports will stand as submitted and will become part of the permanent record. General manager and oversight and performance management updates. Secretary Busick, if you would, please give us an update on the work of the GM Oversight Committee.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Our work is probably close to done for the year, but everybody received an email from Ms. McManus on November 10th, forwarding Ms. Johnson's self-evaluation and a link to the evaluation tool. We have until Friday, November 18th to submit our appraisals. So please, as a reminder, make sure everybody gets that done. It does take a little while to go through it, but I'd appreciate it. I know Ms. Johnson would appreciate it if we all took the time and did a good job on that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next is the approval of the board meeting minutes of October 26, 2021. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the October 26, 2021?
Move approval.
I'm
Second.
sorry. That was so fast. Who was it?
Broom.
And Williams.
Thank you. I have an approval from Broom and a second from Director Williams. Is there any discussion on this item, on this motion? Seeing none, I'll now call for the vote. Are there any no votes on this action? Seeing none, that motion passes with 15 votes. Thank you. Next is our general manager's report. General Manager Johnson, would you please share with us your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to you, board members, and to all who are virtually assembled. I am Deborah Johnson, the General Manager and CEO of the Regional Transportation District. As part of my General Manager report, I will brief you on several topics, noting how each of these topics aligns with the agency's strategic priorities. For those in attendance who may be unfamiliar with the strategic priorities, they are community value. RTD strives to be a strong community partner, providing value to customers, as well as the broader Denver metro region while sustaining planet Earth. Customer excellence. RTD strives to consistently deliver high quality customer service. Employee ownership. RTD seeks to attract and retain a highly skilled and engaged workforce. And financial success. RTD takes very seriously the management of all financial resources. This evening, I will share with you the following information. Speaking to community value, I will discuss the Federal Transit Administration Small Starts grant approval for the Colfax Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Project, a field tour and visit with Longmont City staff, and research in which RTD participated and which was conducted by the American Public Transportation Association regarding transit's post-pandemic landscape. Regarding customer excellence, I will discuss community engagement efforts surrounding Denver Union Station, as well as access to the Adams County Justice Center. And related to employee ownership, I will touch on COVID-19 impacts and employee vaccination efforts and Veterans Day appreciation. So, as it relates to community value, I am happy to report that the FTA has approved the Colfax Avenue BRT project for entry into the Small Starts project development phase of FTA's Capital Investment Grants Program. This will be RTD's first Small Starts project since the Southeast Rail Extension, which opened for revenue service in May of 2019. Other recent projects funded by the Capital Investment Grants Program include the West Corridor, the Gold Line, and the University of Colorado A Line. The City and County of Denver is providing the local match for the Colfax BRT and is sponsoring environmental review, preliminary design, and public outreach, all of which are underway. Denver has already committed $55 million to the project through the city's mobility bond. The 15 and the 15 limited routes which serve the project area have been very successful at retaining ridership during the COVID-19 pandemic. The primary capital improvements will include center running BRT between Broadway and Yosemite, and the project corridor runs from I-225 in Aurora to Denver Union Station. Revenue operations are anticipated to commence in the 2027-2028 timeframe. Just yesterday, on November 15th, I, along with Assistant General Manager of Planning, Bill Van Meter, and Assistant General Manager of Capital Programs, Henry Stoppelkamp, met with Longmont City officials, including the Assistant City Manager, Joni Marsh, and Transportation Planner, Phil Greenwald, to discuss planning efforts surrounding the Kaufman Street Busway project. It was a great opportunity for me to become oriented with the landscape in the area, and more specifically learning about Longmont's project goal, which is to transform Kaufman Street and the city's central business district into a world-class, cost-effective, multimodal corridor. The project aims to improve mobility by reducing traffic congestion and creating protected bicycle lanes and designated lanes for transit buses, including RTDs, as well as privately operated vehicles. Ample sidewalks and landscaping elements will also be included in the improved corridor, which extends from 1st Avenue to 9th Avenue and runs parallel to Main Street in downtown Longmont. RTD was one of 5 agencies selected to participate in research conducted by the Urban Institute on behalf of APTA. The research project aimed to assess short and long-term impacts on transit agencies and to solicit important lessons learned and to share those lessons industry-wide as a result of the pandemic. I, along with several board members and members of the executive team, participated in an interview to assist the project's team's research gathering efforts, and each provided insight regarding their own areas of expertise and experience. The lessons learned will be used by APTA and other members of the association to develop flexible and agile responses to economic, health, and service development challenges amidst a vastly shifting landscape replete with hiring challenges and shifts in working and commuting habits. During the Transform conference held in Orlando, Florida, CEOs of the 5 agencies, which included LA Metro, the Port Authority of Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, the Greater Richmond Transit Company in Richmond, Virginia, and the Spokane Transit Authority in Spokane, Washington, in addition to myself, who participated telephonically, spoke on behalf of RTD and addressed attendees to share our collective takeaways from the research efforts. It's important to note that all 5 CEO panelists were women, highlighting the industry's embracing of diversity as a shared value. Moving on to customer excellence. As you are aware, the board, that is, collectively, I've been working with Adams County officials since August to put in place a short and long-term solution to reduce the distance customers walk when accessing the Adams County Justice Center from the Route 520 transit stops along Bromley Lane in the city of Brighton. As of this afternoon, the Adams County manager and I have fully executed a memorandum of understanding regarding this matter. Adams County, in conjunction with the city of Brighton, have agreed to construct the necessary improvements to meet ADA standards and allow for new transit stops to be established at the intersection of Bromley Lane and Judicial Center Drive. Due to the easements required by the private landowner on the north side of Bromley Lane, Adams County staff is completing the work on the south side of Bromley in the coming weeks before December 31st, 2021, with plans to complete the north side in the spring. During the construction activities over the next couple of weeks, RTD will implement a temporary detour service on Route 520 that will utilize a smaller 30-foot bus and serve the former bus stop on Judicial Center Drive. This smaller vehicle is able to traverse the narrow street and is more agile with its turning radius. This detour is anticipated to commence next week, and it will sunset on December 31st, as we have solidified that in our memorandum of understanding. I will be meeting with the Adams County Manager tomorrow morning, Wednesday, November 17th, as we finalize the detours details relating to the detour. Next up, I'd like to share with you that RTD has engaged in ongoing discussions with local stakeholders in and around the Denver Union Station. And this group, collectively known as Citizens for Safety, are hoping to address unwanted activities occurring in the heart of Denver, including the areas surrounding Denver Union Station and the bus concourse. The group is composed of a number of community organizations, homeowners associations, and business interests, as well as Denver Police Department, all of whom are invested in addressing the increase in drug activity and violence and the erosion of public space and safety, particularly within the city center. I have heard from numerous board members and employees who have echoed the concerns of these local stakeholders, and I have personally witnessed unwelcome activity firsthand. The problems the community engagement group intends to address are chronic and systemic issues experienced throughout the Denver metro area and not solely centered around RTD facilities. And as such, RTD is seeking to have a seat at the table in order to lean in and be part of the solution. And I have made a commitment to this group to personally attend the meetings in addition to our Chief of Transit Police. To address these chronic issues holistically and over an extended period, the steering committee of the community engagement group has established guiding principles with aim to seek information and data on the underlying causes of the ongoing issues, provide funding where helpful to advocate for better policy responses, provide constant feedback to public partners about both effective and ineffective remediation measures, engage with elected leaders to establish outcomes that make the Denver metro area safe for all stakeholders, and implement enforcement policies to provide better outcomes and safety for vulnerable residents and visitors alike, and restore individuals' ability to enjoy public spaces to ensure that businesses and residents are able to prosper. The steering committee has identified additional partners, funding needs, and logistical and administrative matters to be addressed in the near term. And just this afternoon, I received the meeting cadence for the next couple of weeks into the early new year in reference to our plan that's being put forward to help mitigate the issues I've outlined. Moving on to employee ownership, I want to speak quickly about COVID-19, its impacts on employee vaccination efforts. As you may be well aware, the Delta variant has accounted for 100% of COVID-19 cases here in Colorado. As of Sunday, November 14th, Colorado ranked third highest in the nation for new COVID-19 cases per capita. As of last week, an estimated 1 in 48 Coloradans is currently infected with COVID-19. According to state data, 81% of the 1,476 people that are hospitalized with COVID-19 are unvaccinated. Considering these statistics and in light of the particularly high incidence of COVID-19 cases in the county served by RTD, last week, I announced to employees a reduction in the capacity of all operating and administrative facilities to 25% capacity. All employees and contractors are required to wear facial coverings except in certain specific circumstances and are highly encouraged but not required to seek an initial vaccination or vaccine booster as soon as possible. In partnership with Denver Public Health, pop-up clinics for vaccine boosters and flu vaccinations for employees are being held at Denver International Airport. For dates and times, employees can contact the Human Resources Division, and it's also accessible, the dates and times, on our intranet known as the Hub. Employees receiving a COVID-19 vaccination or booster are eligible for a paid time off incentive. As I mentioned last month, for anyone who has not yet received an initial vaccine dose, it is not too late to do so. Vaccinations are also available at Kaiser Permanente offices as well as community sites in Denver, including the Health Center at Auraria, located at 955 Lawrence Way, and the Capitol Heights Pharmacy, located at 1200 Madison Street. Additionally, most Walgreens stores are offering vaccinations, as well as CVS, and RTD continues to partner with health officials to offer the use of park and ride facilities to host vaccine clinics, with smaller pop-up clinics being held in various locations around the district. And as you more than aware of, this past Thursday, November 17th, was Veterans Day. And RTD is fortunate, as are the agency's customers, for the many employees who have served in defense of this nation and who contribute to the agency's successes every day through their passion, respect, trustworthiness, diversity, collaboration, and spirit of ownership. In recognition of their service, veterans have received specialized mugs, and anyone who has not yet received theirs can contact their supervisors or managers. And in closing, in advance of November 25th, which is Thanksgiving, please accept my gratitude and appreciation for each of you on the board for your steadfast commitment to provide mobility options to those in and around the Denver metro area, especially to those most in need. To the nearly 3,000 employees that comprise the Regional Transportation District, I am thankful every day to work among dedicated and talented people who give of themselves 24/7, 365 to make lives better through connections. And with that, Madam Chair, my report is concluded. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, General Manager. Are there any questions or comments for the General Manager? Director Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have just one, maybe more than one quick question about the Urban Institute. Is that research available for our viewing, General Manager Johnson?
Yes, it is. I'll be more than happy to provide the report to the board, and I will send that in a separate transmittal before week's end.
Thank you so much. And I also wanted to just congratulate you on the work that you've done in Adams County. I know we hear often that RTD is the agency of no, and I think it's a fine example of RTD can say yes when it is feasible, right? It's when it's feasible. And so thank you for your continued work and also for continuing to update us on the work that you've been doing in that area. Those are the only two things I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to echo Director Lewis, congratulations on really ironing out those issues with the 520, and goes to show that elected and appointed officials can really work together well, collaboratively, in good spirit. So thank you for that. And so my question, though, is about the COVID vaccinations you mentioned, Walgreens and CVS. Do you know if those are free to RTD drivers?
They're free to everyone. Yes, they are.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, sir.
Does that conclude your questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Director Bouquet.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, GM CEO Johnson. I'm also thankful for the work that you've done, and I'm very thankful for our retirees' work. It's quite a bit of dedication. It was great to see so many of them. So my question is kind of regarding to the limits. I know you're talking about kind of a safety project regarding the downtown area. And I know anecdotally, what I've noticed, as you've mentioned, and then anecdotally I've heard from my constituents, is specifically light rail vehicles going to the downtown area and then coming back from the downtown area. And I was just kind of curious if, you know, as we try to work to kind of understand a little bit better regarding safety wise, does our reach extend past the downtown area and then to the vehicles that might transport to specifically, I know down in District G, I've gotten a couple questions about it because individuals who are riding our vehicles, specifically the light rail again, and just kind of questions regarding if they're actually riding as true customers or just riding, you know, to ride. So I'm just kind of curious. My question is, you know, would our extent of looking into the safety expand to where the vehicles ultimately arrive and depart? And I'm happy to clarify too.
Okay, I think I will need some clarification, but first and foremost, in reference to the report that I provided, we're talking about safety and security issues that have been plaguing Union Station. And specifically, as we look at the bus concourse, I've had the opportunity to engage with a multitude of employees. As I shared during the report, I have witnessed things firsthand, have been victim of verbal assaults and things of the like. So what we're trying to do is create an environment where we have our customers and our employees not being hindered or fearful of their safety in light of activity that is less than welcoming in and around the bus concourse, first and foremost. So that's the intent of this group here. So as we talk about holistically and we speak to non-destination riding customers, one thing's for certain, I would be more than willing to engage with you offline so I better garner an understanding, because the operative word there in which we're talking about is public transit. And so recognizing that we do have an open fare system without any hardened infrastructure, it's difficult, in reference to mitigating that. So I need to better understand what your concerns are, and I'm more than willing to lean in and try to help come up with some discussion around what that may be. From my experience, when I've gone out in the system and I've engaged with other jurisdictions, it's my understanding that, there's concern with individuals that are experiencing homelessness that may get on one of our vehicles and they are transported to a different jurisdiction. And so as we talk about things collectively, these are societal issues, and recognizing that RTD alone can't solve them. That's why I'm engaging in a myriad of different forums, recognizing that all of us need to lean in and do something collectively, but there's outstanding policies that need to be mitigated as well as we go forward. Because while we have frontline employees, recognizing that it's not fair, they're not sworn law enforcement officers, to try to mitigate those other issues that have plagued us, that have been exacerbated through the course of the pandemic, and also by different jurisdictions, maybe closing off areas in which individuals were utilizing previously, and they've been shifted to the greater Denver Union Station area. And you may have folks that, are ferry evaders that are utilizing our system to go elsewhere.
Yeah, perfect. I think what I am trying to target down is just kind of the scope of it, but it seems like this would be more of a focus regarding the Union Bus Station Concord, correct?
That is in this instance, but as a greater issue, recognizing we did have an app to peer review, we're working on a blueprint as relates to community policing holistically. I do endeavor to share that information with you in the beginning of the new year that would factor in some of the elements in which you're talking, but this specific Citizens for Safety endeavor that just got underway, more specifically with some of the business owners and developers, quite naturally are targeted for Denver Union Station, since that is a major intermodal hub in which there's a lot of activity.
Perfect. And the last answer of the peer review really helps me out to know that we'll be getting some answers come the new year. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director Bouquet. Director Whitmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would be remiss to not say a sincere thank you for the work at the Adams County Justice Center and the 520 route. I appreciate the updates. I've had many micro updates between board meetings, and in order for us to communicate to our elected leaders at NADA and on the streets in Brighton and other places, it's been a county-wide concern. So I applaud the good work there, and as Director Lewis says, the ability to say yes and say yes in several different ways. Just want to make sure that we announce the temporary service as soon as it's ready for prime time for those folks up there, and make sure we get the word to the DA's office and the other interested parties as well. So thank you, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Davies, for your work on resolving that issue. It's quite creative and serves as a pattern for future solutions, I think. That's all.
Thank you, Director Moore. If I may, that's the intent of our meeting tomorrow morning, to make sure that we're aligned on communication tactics. So no one's out doing one or the other, because it's a true partnership. So thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Director Whitmore. Director Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually forgot to ask this. So I had a few constituents, and I'll just preface this that I've had this issue on both sides, where constituents have shared concerns about individuals not wearing their mask on our services. And I've also heard from constituents where they have seen lots of folks wearing their mask within our services. And so it's not a question that I anticipate that you can answer in this moment or in real time, but something that I just wanted to bring up as it's come to me, and maybe an opportunity for us to talk about what our policies are. What I hear is that there's a desire for enforcement. And I also understand that we don't necessarily have the staff, and sometimes we can't enforce our way out of like folks just not wanting to wear a mask. But maybe you can come back in your next report with some ideas or, some conversation or dialogue in which we might be able to share with our constituents when they bring those concerns to us as board members.
Director Lewis and Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to address some element of that right here, if I may.
Thank you.
Recognizing as we talk about the requirements that have been placed before us as it relates to TSA, we are having some individuals that aren't compliant. Hence, in my report, when we talk about those that are hospitalized due to the Delta variant, 81% are unvaccinated. So you're going to have an element of our population that has their mind set on what it is they'd like to do. Recognizing that we have all seen various media reports as relates to those people becoming somewhat indignant when they're on aircraft and actually assaulting frontline employees, be they flight attendants or be they customer care agents in airports and things of the like. One thing that we have done across the board, and I do engage frequently with representatives of the Federal Transit Administration as we talk about what it is we're doing, as well as my kitchen cabinet relative to other CEOs in this transit space. We have to be earnest and in reference to what it is that we are doing, because we're coming from a place where there is the policy to mask up. It was these mandates without any direction in reference to ensuring that people are being compliant. And as I have shared with you before, my concern is about our frontline employees, and I would like them to return to the divisions in the evening in the manner in which they left. And so what we have done thus far is basically procured additional masks that our employees can hand out as a way to encourage customers when they don't have a mask, to wear. And so that's something, a step in the direction in which we're taking. But it's a very challenging environment in reference to saying that somebody is going to have to wear a mask when they don't want to, and especially to put that on frontline employees that don't have the support system on board a moving vehicle in which to do so. So recognizing that conversations have ensued with the FTA, with our region specifically being Region 8, about ideas. We're all open to that, but as relates to the people power aspect around all of this, we're still in a catch-22 with what's being asked of us. So I just wanted to provide that in this forum to manage expectations, because I really don't have any type of magical response to address that issue, because it plagues us all. When I go into grocery stores and things of the like, I often see myself, aside from those helping me check out my groceries, I'm only one wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. So let me stop rambling at this point, but I thought I'd be remiss not to take this opportunity to put that out there and let you know it's something that my team and I have been discussing. It's issues that are broached with our employees. I get emails directly from them about what are we doing as we go forward. So it's a very complex and complicated issue.
Thank you, CEO Johnson. And that's actually sufficient. So I appreciate you opining on that.
Director Broom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if the board could get a short, brief update on the redevelopment of the 16th Street Mall.
Madam CEO.
So are you asking for an update right now in this present time, or are you asking for a subsequent report to be provided to this body?
Well, I thought just a brief update, just so we know, when it's going to start or what's going on.
Okay, so at a very high level, in reference to us being in, final design as it relates to the project, there are a couple of issues in which we're trying to address relative to us being on the 16th Street Mall in and of itself, because that is, a fixed guideway for our battery electric buses. When I say we, I specifically, in conjunction with members of my team, being Henry Stompelkamp, has been very versed in this, as well as we work with our partners at the City and County of Denver, trying to mitigate a solution going forward, so we will not be taken off the mall, to minimize adverse impacts to those utilizing our free transit mall ride along the corridor. On Thursday, I do have a follow-up meeting as we go forward with our partners at the City and County of Denver, more specifically in the city manager's office, or I should say in the mayor's office, as we talk about where we are going forward. So that's a very high level of where we are.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir.
Okay. Seeing no other board members in the queue, I would like to bring forward our public hearing on the 2022 proposed budget. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair hereby calls to order the public hearing on the Regional Transportation District's proposed budget for the year 2022. In accordance with both RTD's requirements and local government statutes, notice of the public hearing was duly posted in the office of the executive manager to the board of directors. The notice was published in 2 major daily newspapers of the district prior to this meeting and on the RTD website. This public hearing will be conducted under the rules and regulations for public hearings adopted by the board of directors of the Regional Transportation District. And a copy of those rules will be part of the record of this hearing. The chair would like to point out that the testimony will be limited to the budget or to the subject of public hearing, and the presentations of the testimony should be no longer than 3 minutes. Written testimony should be presented to Barbara McManus, executive manager to the board of directors, for distribution to the board. The proposed 2022 budget was included in the electronic packet for the board and the public to review. Ms. McManus, is there anyone in the queue to speak to the board about the 2022 proposed budget?
I see no hands from attendees, no.
We did receive one piece from the Downtown Denver Streets Partnership, correct?
Yes, and I also see that Paolo Solazano would like to speak.
Okay, Paolo, go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I think this is the right place to ask this. If this is around the budget, I am wondering just about the, or my question is the ongoing lawsuit with the contractor with the light rail, it's escaping my mind right now. I think it's Denver. Oh, I forgot. But it's $80 million, I think, and it's ongoing right now, and it's over the signal issues on the light rail tracks. And then is that being considered, or how much has that taken away from the budget? I guess is my question. And then also the same question for the lawsuit for $100 million that was lost by RTD. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. McManus, is there any other person on the line?
No.
Okay. With no other participants in the queue, we will close the public hearing for the 2022 proposed budget at this time. With that in mind, do we have a motion to adopt the 2022 proposed budget?
So moved, Director Williams.
Second, Catlin.
I have a movement of Director Williams and a second of Director Catlin. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will now call for the vote. Oh, Director Cook, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I don't know what our convention is for public comment, but that question had been brought up in a prior discussion about it. And I don't, I'd rely on General Counsel Snyder, but to the extent he did raise a question, is there a staff member who can address it? I think we've already had it addressed for the board, but just since we'd had a question about it.
Yes. General Counsel.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can speak to the status of the litigation, and then I would defer to Doug McLeod about the outstanding potential liability from any judgment and how we're addressing that in the budget or not. The Denver District Court judge has had the post-trial briefings before him since December 15th of last year, and we're just awaiting a decision from him that could come at any day. But there's really no update at this point on that litigation.
Thank you.
Second Chair Cook, is that good?
Yes, unless CFO McLeod had anything to add, but thank you so much.
Mr. McLeod?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Yes, we do. We did not account for anything in the budget regarding the litigation. However, we do have some options coming up in terms of a refinancing that we'd like to propose to the board that will save quite a bit in interest savings. We plan to bring that information forward in the early part of 2022. We also have a budget underrun we believe will be fairly sizable in 2021 that we can carry forward into the new year. So we do believe we have funding available to handle those types of issues that may arise.
Are you good?
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Director Broom?
I wonder if we could get a comparison with the 2021 budget as to how much did the budget go up this year or go down? It's kind of hard to discern by looking at the materials that were included in the packet.
Mr. McLeod?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was just looking at the budget package. I believe we do have a comparison in there. Pardon me while I look for a moment here. Yes, sorry, it's attachment A within the budget package. Sorry, I don't know what page that is within the board package. However, for operating expenses excluding depreciation, the 2021 amended budget is $691.3 million, and the 2022 budget is $771 million. So an increase of approximately $79 million, most of which is for the increase in service that will be provided in 2022.
Thank you. I'll look a little closer.
Thank you, sir. Director Tisdale?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Regarding the question that was raised during the public hearing, and I apologize, I think we indicated that the public hearing was closed after that one question, but for the sake of the record, just to note that that did close. There were actually two items that were raised by the questioner, I think it's Mr. Solozano. The first one was regarding what is referred to as the Denver Transit Partners litigation, and that has been fully addressed. It appeared as though, and I apologize, my hearing may not have caught the precision of the question, but it appeared as though the questioner might have said that there was also a $100 million loss or judgment. And I think for the sake of the record, we should point out there is no $100 million loss or judgment pending against RTD. I just don't want some casual listeners or the media to misrepresent that somehow there was a statement about a $100 million loss or judgment as to the RTD. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I'm seeing that Second Vice Chair Cook, Director Broom, and Director Tisdale still have their hands raised. I just want to make sure there isn't anything else from you, Director Broom. Okay. First Vice Chair Geisinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, it's as everyone knows, the IIJA, the Infrastructure Act passed, and we had a really excellent memo. I think it was a week or two ago from Ms. Johnson, and I think Michael Davies had helped with it, that I would point people back to, and that potentially we have significant additional funding coming in, which is very exciting. And I assume it's mostly a comment, but I assume that you'd be coming back to us with amendments if it does come in 2022. I know there's some question, there's still whether they'll be moving forward with a continuing resolution or something else. Is that right, Doug, Mr. McLeod? If the money comes in 2022, you just bring it back as an amendment.
Madam Chair, this is Doug McLeod. Thank you. Yes, correct. And certainly we would want to discuss that. There will certainly be strings attached to that in terms of what it would be, what it would qualify for, the actual appropriation or the portioned amount to RTD. So we would like some guidance from the FTA on that first, and certainly we would bring that back to the board.
Great, thanks.
And if I may, Madam Chair, just for some clarity, there's a lot of different funding that's included in the IIJA. So in an effort to manage expectations, there's formula funding, there's discretionary funding. And so I just want to ensure that we're talking about that there would be something that would come forward if in fact there was an adjustment made to the formula funding in which we would receive, recognizing what First Vice Chair Geisinger mentioned as it relates to the continuing resolution, because while the IIJA was signed into law yesterday, we're still operating under continuing resolution. And so when we think about FAST Act and MAP 21, that were previous pieces of surface transportation law that has been effectuated, we don't know where that may shore up for us. And for all good intents and purposes, there is a lot of speculation about when that could be. And we're looking at midterm 2022. So there's different types of funding that we could be eligible for, bus and bus facilities that are discretionary grants and things of the like. So I just wanted to ensure that everybody had an understanding of, we're talking about the color of money here, and not all of that would have to go through this process because we would be competing with other entities for some monies under the IIJA grant funding opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm seeing no one else in the queue. So we have a motion by Director Williams, and I apologize. The second was?
It was Catlin.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Director Catlin. I will now call for the vote. Are there any no votes on the 2022 proposed budget? Seeing none, it passes unanimously with 15 votes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next is the unanimous consent. There are 8 items on the unanimous consent agenda this evening. They're listed under items 13 actions B through I. They are the paratransit scheduling and management system, the purchase of 17 40-foot battery electric buses, the award of Group 31 contracted fixed route services, the 2022 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, otherwise known as the PTASP, the system-wide fare study and equity analysis consultant, the release of the Sheridan parcel from certificates of participation, the 2022 fiscal policy, and the 2022 investment policy. If anyone has a change to or questions on any of these items, please feel free to advise the chair at this time. And we will, of course, be happy to pull it from the unanimous consent agenda for consideration under recommended action. Director Lewis.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's necessary for you to pull any of these from the consent agenda, but I just wanted to point out that I wasn't in attendance last Tuesday and thus didn't have the opportunity to vote on the last 3. I do support them, and I'm not sure in terms of process if I need to pull those from the consent agenda to officially vote on those.
I'm going to ask our general counsel for that. General counsel, can you help us with that, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Melanie Snyder, General Counsel. Director Lewis, you can vote on those, just even though you weren't at the committee hearing last week.
I just want to clarify, do I need to pull those from the consent agenda to do so, or can I just allow them to stay there?
You can allow them to stay there on the consent
Perfect.
agenda.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
I move for approval, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And that was Director Whitmore?
Yes.
Music is the second.
All right, I have a movement of Director Whitmore, a second of Director Busick. Are there any no votes on this action? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you so much. This evening, there are 2 recommended actions on the agenda. They are listed as the 2022 redistricting criteria and procedures. And that is for the Board of Directors to adopt the 2022 redistricting criteria and procedures in accordance with the following discussion as recommended by Chair Rivera Malpiedi and Directors Broom and Sloan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a movement of Director Sloan and a second of First Vice Chair Geisinger. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Director Lewis?
Director Lewis, please.
Hi, I'd like to offer an amendment.
Go ahead.
So the amendment would read, actually two, and they'd be numbered. The redistricting committee will hold no less than 15 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties. And then the second, the redistricting committee will hold at least 3 public hearings prior to board approval and adoption of a redistricting plan.
Do I have a second on the amendment?
Second, okay.
I have a first of Director Lewis and a second of Director Bouquet. Any discussion on this item? Director Deschel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to try to speak quickly because my dog has been going in and out of parking pretty aggressively. I think this is great. I think it's important that we, as a board, codify, our commitment to soliciting feedback from the public as part of our process. So certainly support and looking forward to other discussion if there is.
Okay, thank you. Director Whitmore.
Yes, just a quick question for the 2 committee members or staff. Is this workable with our timeline, this being the proposed amendment from Director Lewis?
I'm going to ask our CEO, I don't see Mr. Van Meter. If we need are you asking for a staff's response in terms of the timeline, whether this might change that? Director Whitmore?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, or I see Mr. Van Meter. Mr. Van Meter?
Thank you. This is Bill Van Meter, Assistant General Manager Planning. So I haven't had much time to kind of cross-reference schedules nor understand, as I'm just hearing about this, what the proposed timing would be. I think the board will recall that our statutory deadline is March 15th, and we are working on a very tight schedule. Having said all of that, presuming that we continue apace, if it's the board's prerogative and direction to do this, I don't think that this would be a make or break deal, presuming we had latitude to schedule it aggressively and effectively.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. First Vice Chair Geisinger.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is, and I saw this late, I can't recall, did we have a requirement for a certain number of meetings at this point? Is this, I guess maybe this question for Director Lewis. And then is the 15 meeting idea that we have one in each district, or are we doing, I assume we'd be doing Zoom? If you could just kind of explain. I totally agree we need to have good public hearing and comment. I'm wondering if that's it's a lot. So just wondering.
I can answer the latter, but can you tell me your first question? I'm sorry.
The first question was well, what was the one you were going to answer? And then I'll.
So the 15, it was 15 for 15 directors. I'm happy to have a discussion about that if they. I'm sorry. He does this every time I turn off my mic. I'm happy to have a discussion about this about the 15, if you all would like to talk about the 15s, but it was essentially because we have 15 directors, and it would allow us the opportunity to really delve into communities of interest, to delve into the precincts, because we haven't really been able to do that and do so in partnership with the communities that are impacted by this decision, essentially. And I don't recall your first question. I'm sorry.
My first question may be for you, it may be for someone else, is do we have a requirement for a certain number of public meetings and public hearings currently that we're planning to do with the redistricting?
I'll answer the first part and I'll let other folks chime in. We've had some conversations in the redistricting committee about public engagement and never really landed on a set number of meetings or dates. or the cadence or any of that. And so that's essentially why I'm bringing it forward as an opportunity to really memorialize that and put those in to our planning in a real way.
Great. I'm open to listening to, comments. I think it's a great idea to put something in. I'm wondering, we don't have usually a huge turnout. I'm wondering if we could combine, three districts and do 5 meetings or something along those lines, just in terms of staff time and efficiency, something like that.
I'm open to it. I mean, I know it's another amendment to the amendment, and so I want to honor that. I'm sure you all are ready to go home, but I'm also open to that discussion.
Okay, that's all I have right now. I'll just listen to others and see where we are.
Director Catlin.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, my comments were very much aligned with First Vice Chair Geisinger. And just because I'm very mindful of staff time, particularly over the holidays, and if there could be a way to consolidate some of that. I think 15 is a lot. It's a heavy lift for staff, and I appreciate AGM Bill Van Meter saying that it's not impossible, but I'm thinking that that's quite a lot to ask of them. I have a question.
Can I answer that, Director Catlin, just so I don't forget that first one? I just have a hard time when they're stacked, and I want to make sure I'm addressing it. Thank you, Director Catlin. If you'd like to give me, if you have a recommendation, I'm happy to accept that recommendation for a different or better number.
I don't yet, but I am willing to listen, as Director Geisinger said. I have a couple questions that might put it in a slightly better perspective for me anyway. Number one is 10 years ago, how many meetings did we hold for this topic? And the second part of my question is, how many meetings were held for the both the legislative and congressional redistricting processes that just resulted in the revised maps? Those are my 2 questions. And if the numbers aren't readily available, maybe if it could just be answered later. Thank you.
Mr. Van Meter.
Thank you, Chair. Bill Van Meter. I have no idea regarding the second part of that question in terms of the congressional redistricting. My best recollection of 10 years ago, relying on memory on the spot, was that there was 1 meeting and 1 opportunity held for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Director Rosenthal. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Oh, I keep pressing the unmute. My apologies, just wasn't activated. So yeah, I do share some of the concern about 15 meetings, kind of squishing those in and the ability to meet our schedule. And so, given that, let's just say it was about 1 meeting last time, I think 2 would be sufficient. I am also very concerned about staff time but also, making sure that the public is engaged, but also to the extent that they wish to participate. So, maybe they could also be combined with one of our future meetings. Perhaps staff could let us know how many more meetings we have for the board. And perhaps it could be at one of these. It doesn't necessarily, because we have public comment process. And so someone could just, during one of our future meetings, can just pipe in and say, hey, by the way, I think this is good, this is bad, this is indifferent in terms of redistricting. So I'm not certain that we need to create new meetings necessarily above and beyond maybe 1 or 2. But my preference is to include some of that feedback in some of our future board meetings as a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Second Vice Chair Cook.
Might I respond?
Let me do Director Cook so I can get through the queue and then you can respond if you don't mind.
In transparency, I can't keep up with all of them.
Okay, then please respond.
So
Director Lewis.
sure, respond to Director Catlin's question about how many meetings they had for the congressional districts. I just text, and for each of the district, they had roughly 6 public meetings, public ones, and had a number of meetings behind the scenes with minority leaders. And so I just wanted to answer that question. And I just wanted to say thank you for your feedback, Director Rosenthal. I'm happy to take that into consideration.
And then Director Lewis, just for transparency, can you cite your source for that?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me. I said I just checked in with with Senator Coleman and asked how many meetings they had.
Thank you. All right. Second Vice Chair Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and agree with some of the comments about the concern with the number of meetings. And actually, we only recently affirmed the idea of soliciting public comment along with the process that led to these guidelines tonight. And I guess if this fails, what I'd like to see happen is that the staff bring through the committee, the ad hoc committee that you created, Madam Chair, a recommended program for public outreach rather than specifying it right here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Davidson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it quick. I'd like the suggestion that kind of coming together between Director Lewis and First Vice Chair Geisinger, that maybe we do a reduced amount. I don't know whether Director Lewis, you'd consider a friendly amendment to, fewer than 5 meetings or something along those lines. But I did just want to add, First Vice Chair Geisinger triggered a thought that actually having multiple directors and some crossover could help some discussion for those of us in districts where there's, some of that complex overlap. And I know many of us feel that. So perhaps even having fewer meetings could encourage getting multiple directors present in multiple districts. So I don't have a specific suggestion, and maybe just throw that out there for the group that perhaps there's a friendly amendment forming, but just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director Davidson. I actually hadn't considered that, and I think that's actually a really good idea to think about having 3 directors overlapping so that we might just have a conversation. I like it.
All right, Director Broom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It'd be a lot easier to have this conversation if we had a look at what's going to be proposed as the first cut as far as the redistricting itself. I mean, if it turns out there's just a few changes to be made, then we're making much to do about nothing. If it turns out there's significant changes that are going to be proposed because of the change in population level, then it may make sense to have maybe 3 meetings and have 5 districts at a time that are contiguous, just to make it manageable rather than throwing the whole thing into 15 different conversations, because it's going to be awful hard to keep track of what people are saying and which district they're referring to and so forth.
Thank you, sir. Secretary Busick.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would just point out that the recommended action itself provides the flexibility that I believe we need in determining the number of public outreach meetings we should have when it says the board will invite and allow for public comment on the proposed 2022 district map prior to final adoption. So we, in conjunction with staff, can figure out what that looks like as we go and keep it fluid. I think that's sufficient. Thanks.
Thank you. And Director Deschelle, since you spoke, let me go to Director Sloan and then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Cool. Director Sloan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Deschelle. I appreciate having this as a written email, so that I can review it. But I do have a few questions for Director Lewis. As I see, there are 2 different categories of meetings. There are public meetings with stakeholders and 3 public hearings of the entire committee, I believe. And you mentioned that the legislative redistricting process included identification of affected groups and meetings particularly directed to hear their concerns. Is that something that's in the 15 public meetings that you're suggesting?
Is that something? Can you clarify what do you mean? What you mean by is that something?
The identification of people particularly affected by the redistricting and meetings targeted directly to their concerns.
I think the 15 was meetings targeted directly to individual districts. More specifically, I was thinking about precincts and that level of detail. Does that help?
It does, because I was interested when you mentioned about there were kind of sub-meetings that were held for the legislative process.
Yeah, what I was mentioning is that, for example, Senator Coleman said that representatives and senators held meetings within their districts, but held, for example, Senator Coleman held 6 meetings within his district, and then other reps, Representative Leslie Hare would have meetings that she would hold in her district. Does that help? So I'm not suggesting that each of us hold 6, but that the collective of us hold 15. Again, negotiable.
Madam Chair, one more question, if it's just to clarify this. So really you're suggesting 18 meetings, 15 or a combination of the 15 district meetings. And then the redistricting committee alone would have 3 public hearings. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Director Sloan, that's on that, and I'll be honest with you, it's assuming that there are significant changes or a significant input that would cause the maps to change or the process to change in a significant way, and to allow the public to come again, I guess, have a second bite at the apple with those 3 meetings that I outlined before we adopted the plan as a board.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it, Director.
No, thanks for the question.
Director Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm asking this of the room in general. So we're not changing the district. The RTD district as a whole is still going to be the RTD district as a whole. Is that correct? I guess, Mr. Van Meter, you can answer that one.
That is correct. It's just the boundaries for representation, not the district boundaries as a whole.
And is it true additionally that each of the directors will have the same number of constituents?
If this resolution passed, plus or minus 5%.
Okay, so what we are discussing here is whether people who now live in my district object to being in Director Lewis's district or vice versa. Is that what the subject matter here is? Anybody? Or whether Director Cook's people object to being in Director Malpietti's district, or that's what we're talking about, right? Or am I misunderstanding something here?
I don't think we're there yet, Director Williams.
Oh, sorry, Rivera, go ahead.
Sorry,
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. And I think Director Broom talked about it in terms of, we don't know. We haven't seen the redistricting maps until the next meeting, correct, Mr. Van Meter? So we really don't know at this point.
So we're going to have 18. We're having a proposal here to have 18 meetings about something that we don't know how it's going to go. Is that correct?
I think what you're asking, Director Williams, is about the process. And this came to the executive committee and now is at the board meeting. And so we didn't have a discussion in the redistricting committee about what the process was in terms of specificity for public engagement. And so we've seen 3 drafts of the maps, if you will, And so this would give an opportunity for, once we have a discussion as we're moving forward in this process, to have communities to engage in the process in a meaningful way. And so the answer is yes. And I think we kind of have an idea that there are going to be some tweaks and some changes to districts just because of density in some areas such as B, A, and C. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. I think Director Geisinger's as well. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. And so that's essentially what we're talking about.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, General Counsel.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. General Counsel Melanie Snyder. Just an additional piece of information for everyone to keep in mind. So the congressional redistricting plan was approved by the state Supreme Court earlier this month. And then just yesterday, the state Supreme Court approved the state legislative redistricting plan. So right now, it's my understanding that the counties have actually until January 31st to update the voter precinct maps. So I just share that with, and because RTD statute must respect and can't break up voter precincts, I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that it might not make sense necessarily to have a bunch of meetings before we see what those voter precinct maps look like. And I think that that's something that was discussed a little bit in the ad hoc committee, that, you know, does it make sense to create other versions of maps when those might be substantially fixed based on the voter precinct maps that the counties end up adopting, understanding also that that might not happen until the very end of January.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams, are you complete? Okay, great.
I'm sorry.
Director Catlett.
Thank you, Chair. I really do appreciate the desire to have a number of public meetings, but I think we have a number of unanswered questions, among them being the precincts, the map, the draft map that we have not seen yet. And I think that when we have a little bit more information, then we can make a more deliberate approach to outlining a public meeting strategy. So just right now to prescribe 15 plus 3 seems, in my mind, to be a great intent, but maybe premature. So that's all I had.
Thank you. First Vice Chair Geisinger.
Director Lewis, I appreciate the flexibility and the putting it out there to discuss. Would you be open to asking our redistricting committee and staff to come up with a plan, given the time constraints that Ms. Snyder was just talking about, and I think they've heard, the desire for some definition, and I guess that would be my suggestion. What do you think?
Tell me your suggestion.
That we turn it back over to Director Broom and Director Sloan and Bill Van Meter and his staff to come up with a plan that's workable, and look at what the options are and bring it back.
I don't say this because there's a lack of trust. I say this because I think there's a lack of specificity within the way that it's currently written, is that the way that it's currently written doesn't explicitly say when we are going to be engaging the public and at what points we are going to be engaging the public. And so my intent is that we get a little more clear on that engagement. And so maybe the ask, and I'm willing to entertain this, the ask is, can we reduce the number of meetings with the understanding that that we might have additional information in January and that cadence might make more sense. But I think to remove it, I just get a bit hesitant, to be honest with you, Director Geisinger.
Okay, I'll let others speak again, and we'll see where we are. Thanks.
Director Deschel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone who's spoken. I just want to address a few points that were raised. I think first is to look historically at the amount of access we've granted to the public as a benchmark 10 years ago is not the most prudent approach when we're focusing on equity and inclusion. because many rules in our politics in general were designed around exclusion. And so relying on the past to inform what we should do in the present may not always be the most prudent choice. And that goes to comments about how this is much ado about nothing, which is, we don't know that unless we ask people. I think a question I have for staff is, and this I guess may sound a little silly, but how long does it take to get a well-published public meeting out there in the world?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Please, General Manager.
I would say ultimately at a minimum of 3 weeks, because people have an understanding of generally what they're doing 2 weeks in advance. Optimally, I would say 4 weeks if you're looking to garner full-fledged participation. And this is someone speaking from a place that did public meetings early on and would, have ample public meetings in the People's Republic of San Francisco. So with that as a backdrop, I'm just sharing that in order to ensure you're going to have people attend, you have to leverage a multitude of conduits. And so if you wait to the 11th hour, that's generally what you get, because we as busy people know what we already have planned 2, 3, 4 weeks out.
Yeah, that's helpful, because I think from my perspective, if we're not going to have all information until January 31st, then, and we want to start having meetings, let's say to give people a week in February, there's about 7 weeks or 6 weeks of total meeting time where the public could be fully informed. And Director Lewis, maybe curious if you'd be amenable to amending that sentence where we invite public comment to have something to the effect of, asking staff to come back to us to detail the process for no fewer than 6 meetings, which would be about 1 meeting per week in that time period between February and the end of March, with enough time for us to vote on it as a board by the end of March. I think my math is generally close. So maybe it's no fewer than 4, no more than 6. Some language like that we basically ask people so that at the first meeting of January, we can approve a plan. That's incredibly well founded, that would end up equating to about 1 meeting a week between the end of January and the end of March, because we would need to vote on the last week of March to approve. Is my timing generally accurate there? Apologies if that was somewhat circular.
No, I just want to make sure I am catching what you are saying. So if I were to reread it, the redistricting committee will hold no fewer than 4 and no more than 6 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties, or did I miss something?
Impacted parties, and we'll present a plan for board approval at the January 2022 board meeting.
Sure.
Or maybe it doesn't need board approval, but at least keep us informed at the January meeting of what the plan is. Because by the first week of January, if we get 4 weeks, then we should know what our plan is for the first week of February, which is when the latest time period for when people would be fully informed as to what the maps look like.
Sure, I'm open to it. The redistricting committee will hold no fewer than 4 and no more than 6 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties, and will present a plan for board approval during our January 2022 meeting.
That works.
So I'll have to take my original motion off the table, but you can take a comment from Director Rosenthal.
Thank you. Director Rosenthal, your comment, please, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I guess I would be cautious to conflate congressional redistricting, legislative redistricting with Board of RTD directors redistricting. There is no more political process than the legislative and congressional redistricting. It is partisan, it is slugfest, it is completely different. And so I don't even think it's in the same wheelhouse. And so I think that process is, you know, I don't even know that we can call attention to that and then bring that concept in, except to say that, you know, we do have to always keep in mind our communities of interest, but at the same time that, you know, we don't go to that example and say, well, this is a good example. I really don't think it is. And then I would say also with numbers of meetings, we get some of our best feedback and comments not at public meetings. We get the best feedback and comments by, you know, email and phone calls and emails to the board office, emails to us. And so I think more of a public campaign to get people to, you know, write in, things like that, that would be best. I mean, look how many people called in tonight. Two people, and we passed the budget, which is huge. It's monumental for this agency. We passed a huge budget tonight, you know, and so I guess I'm concerned that we would be going, you know, and creating all these meetings when, quite honestly, we could combine them with meetings we're already going to hold, whether it's, as I said, meetings of this board that we've already scheduled, or like say we're going to have service change meetings. Why can't we combine with service change meetings or something we're already doing and say we're going to have these two issues together so that we have more, you know, so that it's more efficient of the people's time, of staff time. It's respectful to the public. It gives them an opportunity. But, you know, again, they can always, you know, input at these meetings as well that we already have. So that is sort of my perspective as well on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to call for the motion. So
If I might-
I think we need
Might
to
I
call
respond?
well, I think we need to call for this motion first. And then if you want to do another amendment, then you can bring that up. But I think what's on the floor is what you sent forward at 5:12 on the redistricting committee. If we could vote on that since we've had all the discussion. And then if you want to do another amendment, then you bring that forward just to keep it clean.
It might be helpful if I took the amendment off the table and added this amendment, so we're not voting for it, so it's not just procedural. Because
So
I'm
I
going to
would
put the
like
motion
to
on the
ask our
table.
general counsel. General counsel, can you give us some direction on this, please?
We literally do this.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do think it would be cleaner since there was a motion and a second. The motion's on the floor right now for the body to vote on. So it would be cleaner to have the body vote on this motion to amend. And then if there's another motion that someone wants to offer, that would be helpful.
Okay, great. So the motion was by Director Lewis and the second by Director Bouquet. What I'd like to do is, this is the amendment that reads, the redistricting committee will hold no less than 15 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties. The redistricting committee will hold at least 3 public hearings prior to board voting and adoptions of a redistricting plan. So what I'd like to do is go through the list and do a vote. Director Bouquet.
Since the mover sounds like they're withdrawing this amendment, I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Director Broom.
No.
Director Busick.
No.
Director Catlin.
No.
Director Cook.
No.
Director Davidson.
No.
Director Deschel.
Yes.
Director Geisinger.
No.
Director Lewis.
Yes, and I was not withdrawing.
Director Rosenthal.
No.
Director Sloan.
No.
Director Tisdale.
No.
Director Whitmore.
No.
Director Williams.
No.
And I am a no. So the vote is 13 noes and 2 yeses. The motion fails. Okay, is there another amendment that you want to bring forward, Director Lewis?
Yes, I will bring forward another motion. Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion would read.
Oh, hold on, I gotta write down. Okay, I need a clean piece of paper. Okay, go ahead.
The redistricting committee will hold no fewer than 4 and no more than 6 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties, and will present a plan for board approval at our January 2022 meeting.
Okay.
And the second one would read the same.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Second, Bouquet.
Okay, so Lewis is the movant and Bouquet is the second. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Director Rosenthal.
I'm sorry, just point of clarification. So does this mean that we have to come up with the dates of all those meetings by January 31st, or that they have to hold all those meetings by then? I guess I was a little confused about the wording.
Director Lewis?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll present a plan. And so the staff will let us know when they would hold those meetings by our January 2020 meeting, 2022, excuse me.
So the meetings themselves don't have to have been completed. There just needs to be a plan of when they will be completed, correct?
That's correct.
I
And
see.
that's from my understanding from General Counsel that we might not have information to be able to hold those meetings before January 31st.
I see. And my sense is that, if we have, 1 or 2, expressly, built to, meetings just dedicated to redistricting, that's probably fine. But I think if we're going to hold more than that, they should be, in collaboration and on the same date as other meetings that are regularly scheduled, that are already, as I said, for service changes, that are already scheduled for this current board, as when we meet. We can always hear testimony if somebody wants to contribute. But I don't think more than 2, dedicated just for that purpose. I think that's sufficient.
Thank you, Director Rosenthal. I actually don't have any objection to that. And I was going to comment earlier and let you know, I think we had talked about this at, I don't remember what board meeting, that our communities are really strapped for time. And the more often that we can bring multiple issues to one meeting, the better. We talked about combining meetings with City and County of Denver or with Boulder, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't have any objection to that. The one piece that I might pull out is it's as much as about getting public comment and input from our public as it is to providing them with education. And I think our staff does a really good job of presenting the data in a way that's consumable. And so I hope that you're hearing that it's serving more than one need in getting the input, but also providing education on what redistricting is, how the process works, and how folks are impacted.
Thank you. Director Davidson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the new amendment, Director Lewis. I just wanted to state, I guess, for the record, in the group's consideration, I am pretty supportive of this. I think, just in thinking about how rarely we do this, this gives us, I think, the best of both worlds. We wait until January, we see what we have. This gives us an opportunity to go out to the public and reach out and hear what we don't know. I, for one, am very curious to hear from constituents on this. If we can, advertise this, get this out there, try to get some attendance. This is something that I actually do hear from folks about. But in, small settings and one-offs and just discussions when people are even realizing this is on the ballot with directors. So I think this is a good chance to hear from people, inform a little bit about this. Thanks for finding the middle ground on it. Appreciate the chance to comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director Deschel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. And just want to highlight for Director Rosenthal that, as Director Lewis and I sort of discussed this publicly, that when I proposed language, I kept it intentionally vague such that it's at the committee's discretion. It just says it has to be a public meeting. It doesn't have to be a separate public meeting. But also want to highlight and amplify what you had mentioned earlier about, as we think about evolving as an agency, coming into the 21st century of really pushing to solicit and compile feedback that we get in means that are not just public comment, right? It used to be that was one of the only ways you could actually access people in public, was to go track them down and call them on their phone. And now we have the internet and all its wonderful things. So just some food for thought for the committee, who's going to come back with a plan of how to integrate some of those other means of connecting with people. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I see no one else in the queue, so I'd like to call for the question. Director Lewis, can you read the amendment again? I wrote down as much
I'm happy
as I
to.
could. Please.
Sure, I'm happy to. Give me 3 seconds here. So the redistricting committee will hold no fewer than 4 and no more than 6 public meetings during the redistricting process to receive comments from interested and impacted parties. The redistricting committee will hold at least 3 public hearings prior to board voting and adoption of a redistricting plan.
Thank you. I'm going to go down the line for the vote. Director Bouquet,
Yes.
Director Broom,
No.
Director Busick,
No.
Director Catlin,
Yes.
Director Cook,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Deschel,
Yes.
Director Geisinger,
Yes.
Director Lewis,
Yes, sorry.
Director Rosenthal,
No.
Director Sloan,
Yes.
Director Tisdale,
Yes.
Director Whitmore,
No.
Director Williams.
No. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did. Thank you. All right. So,
And your vote, Chair?
and really, I am a no, only because I'd like to see the committee do their work. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses and 6 no's. So it passes. The amendment passes. So if Director Lewis, if you would write that verbiage and send it over to Ms. McManus so she could put it in the packet, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay.
Sure, thank you all.
All right. We're on to our second recommended action. And it is the approval of the,
Pardon me, Madam Chair.
yes,
We
please.
just need to return back to the main motion on the
Oh, I'm
guidelines
sorry.
themselves.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. So the original motion is for the 2022 redistricting criteria and procedures for the Board of Directors to adopt the 2022 redistricting criteria and procedures in accordance with the following discussion as recommended by Chair Rivera Malpiedi, Directors Broom and Sloan. Okay. Director Bouquet,
Yes.
Director Broom,
Yes.
Director Busick,
Yes.
Director Catlin,
Yes.
Director Cook,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Deschel,
Yes.
Director Geisinger,
Yes.
Director Lewis,
Yes.
Director Rosenthal,
Yes.
Director Sloan,
Yes.
Director Tisdale,
Yes.
Director Whitmore,
Yes.
Director Williams,
I'm a yes.
and I am a yes. So General Counsel, can you please explain this 15 yeses, unanimous consent?
Pardon me, Madam Chair. You had a vote of 15-0 to pass the recommended action. Yes.
The original recommended action, correct?
Correct, and it's with the amendments that were.
It is with the amendment. Okay, perfect. All right, now I can move on to the second recommended action, correct? Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're close. The second recommended action is the approval of the board expense reductions for 2022. For the board to adopt the attached resolution number blank, series of 2021, concerning a reduction of the director's expense budget lines in fiscal year 2022 to offset revenue shortfalls due to the COVID-19 impacts. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Director Lewis.
Do I have a second?
Second, Director Davidson.
I have a movement of Director Lewis and a second of Director Davidson. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none. Are there any no votes? Seeing none. This moves. Oh, Director Broom, please.
I'm going to be a no vote. I think this is overdoing it. My suggestion would be that we would adopt maybe 85% of the 2019 budget as being our budget going forward.
Duly noted. Okay. So I think what I will do is see, are there any other no votes? Director Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am a no only in the sense that I concur with Director Broom that we may be sweeping with too broad a broom in this matter, and that it might be appropriate to reconsider that. Having said that, I am not uncomfortable with adopting a resolution for the reason that this board can always review and revise its budget going forward based upon new circumstances, which might include increased funds from the IIJA. People need to understand that the board expense reimbursements that we provide are not for joy rides and frolic and detour, but rather for conducting the business of this agency and meeting with stakeholders, constituents, writers, and others. But as I said, we can amend in the future too as circumstances change. But for the sake of the record, I'll pop in as a no. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I'm going to go to Ms. McManus first, Director Catlin.
I just wanted to add that based on the last conversation we had on this subject, that we did add a component into this board report that the change in the expense amount can be amended by the board at any time by doing a budget change.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Catlin.
Thank you. I'm inclined to agree with Directors Tisdale and Broom. I have a very, very large geographic area and no transit service to speak of. And there's pent up demand for additional engagement with stakeholders. And so I try to be frugal, but I think that I'm inclined to vote no, and I hope that we can get back to a more normal circumstance than we've experienced in the last 20 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Whitmore, I noticed your hand was up and now it's down. Do you have a question or a comment, sir?
No, I'll pass. Thank you.
All right, so on the recommended action, I think I'm going to go through and take a vote. All right, Director Bouquet.
Yes.
Director Broom.
No.
Director Busick.
Yes.
Director Catlin.
No.
Director Cook.
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Director Deschel.
Yes.
Director Geisinger.
Yes.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Rosenthal.
Yes.
Director Sloan.
Yes.
Director Tisdale.
No.
Director Whitmore.
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So there are 3 no's and 12 yeses, so the motion passes. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. There is no executive session on the agenda this evening. Is there any old business to come before the board? Seeing none, is there any new business to come before the board? Director Williams.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm a little confused on a situation that we had earlier tonight. At the beginning of this meeting, there was a statement made that we do not answer questions from the public, that we take public comment, but that we do not answer questions. Shortly thereafter, a question was raised during the budget portion of the meeting. Director Cook repeated the question and then staff answered the question. So I'm confused on what the policy is. If we are going to answer questions only if they're repeated by a board member, or if we don't answer questions, or if we do answer questions. I understand that we accept public comment. I'm asking what our policy is henceforth on public questions.
Thank you for that question. I'm going to ask the general counsel to chime in on this because it was a budget public hearing, which was different than the board meeting. But general counsel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Melanie Snyder, General Counsel. So yes, Director Williams is correct that it has been our policy or this board's policy and practice to receive public comment, but that it is not an interactive process where the public asks questions and staff responds to those questions. So that is, certainly up to this board's prerogative if you wanted to change that, but that is generally the practice.
Thank you. Director Williams, does that answer your question?
No, because we did it.
Yeah.
So it was a mistake and we're not going to do it again, or we're going to do it when we feel like it, or we're going back to the old policy, or.
No, I think it's duly noted. But thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I do think it is something we need to discuss. So.
Okay, thank you.
Director Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I did want to note for the sake of the record, and I do appreciate former RTD Board Chair Lee Kemp mentioning my position at APTA, but let me note that in addition to my being elected as the chair of the APTA Transit Board Members Committee at our meeting in Orlando last week, which I truly appreciate, and that's a committee that represents some 4,000 transit board members across the country at almost 600 transit agencies that are members of APTA. In addition to that, Pauletta Tanilis, our AGM for Marketing and Communications, was elected as chair of the Marketing and Communications Committee at APTA. And I believe that our general manager, CEO, Deborah Johnson, is now the vice chair of the CEO's Commuter Rail Committee. So we have a number of our folks actively participating in leadership roles at APTA, and I just thought it was important to share that for the record. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge your leadership over the past 2 years as chairman of this board, and thank you for navigating us through some interesting times. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for your strong leadership and remarkable grace that you've exhibited throughout this process. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Thank you. Boy, it was a blast. It's gone just like that. Director Sloan.
Yes, and this first, it relates to all the comments because you have done an extraordinary job in extraordinary times. But this also relates to Director Williams' question and Director Tisdale's expertise now that he is chair of the board's committee at APTA. And it seems to me that Director Williams raised a really valid point about our policy going forward, and Director Tisdale can guide us on issues like this that every one of us will have. And it was, I brought up at the board meeting that a retreat to resolve just such internal issues would really be advisable as soon as we can schedule one. So thank you both Director Tisdale and Williams for bringing up something related.
Thank you. Director Williams.
No, I changed my mind.
Okay, great. I don't see anyone else in the queue. Ladies and gentlemen, but we are adjourned unless there's anybody who wants to stay on. Okay, 7:31 p.m. Have a good evening, everybody.
So long.
Good night, all.